This video is on how to clock a Flaming Rivers rack and pinion power steering rack, and I'll do a little review on it too. I've had it in here close to a year. So if you look down here, this is the passenger side. There's one mount that goes from the rack to the cross beam that supports the power steering rack and pinion, and then the other one towards the center of the truck is the one that supports the cross rod. It's kind of like a drag link, and that rod is where your let's see if I can get showing of this. Your tie rod will bolt right back in the factory position, and once you install it, you'll use the factory tie rods, or whatever you're using, and it will bolt right back in the factory position. So you don't have any bump steer or anything. Pretty much the geometry of the steering is exactly the same as what it was with the steering box on it. Just easier to steer. It's more responsive and easier to steer. Now to clock it, it's not going to come clocked. It'll be close, but not clocked. So you got the one rack, or the one mount that goes from the mount to the crossbar to the rack. Now there's a little Allen set screw in it. You're going to have to loosen that set screw, loosen the two screws that Allen bolts that hold the rack, and there's one on the other side too. Loosen it and clock it to where you want it, to where the steering shaft will hook up and not bind. It'll be close, but not close enough. It might hit your header, the steering shaft might hit your header, and the steering shaft might hit the frame. It might be too steep and bind. And then once you get that clocked, then you'll see the one right there. Now that one clocks your drag link, I guess you might call it. Kind of a drag link. Goes all the way across. It's where the factory tie rods hook on. And you'll clock that so that you get that pretty much parallel with the ground. And your tie rod's back in the factory position. And there's only one of those. And there's a couple little supports that hold it so that it don't bounce around. And what you don't want to do is you'll feel it, the rack and pinion bind up, and when you feel it bind up, you went too far. You got to back it down a little bit and reclock things. You just got to play with it and get it clocked in right. So basically you have a round gear on top of a flat shaft, and you want to kind of feel so that that's center and it pretty much parallel with the shaft inside the rack and pinion, so that you're not binding it up or running it at an angle. And that's how you want to clock it. Then you'll come across, and there'll be, here's your steering shaft comes out, and you want to clock it. You might hit the header here when it comes out of the box, somewhere in here. You might hit the header, you might hit the frame. So you want to clock it so that you have at least a finger's distance between everything around there. And there's the other mount right in there. You can see the, well, it's hard to see, but it's there. The hoses are sitting on top of it. So that's how you clock it. You want to lay this back or up, whichever you need to go, so that you get clearance on your steering shaft. And that's what you want to do there. And as far as the unit itself, the rack and pinion, the Flaming Rivers rack and pinion, it's a really nice component. It's pricey, but it really makes the truck steer a lot easier. I run about a little over 7 degrees of caster in the truck, which is pretty much what modern trucks run that come with rack and pinion steering. With the steering box, though, 3.5 is about tops to where the steering starts to get really tight at low speeds. You get up past 5 and it gets really hard to steer at low speeds. The inputs, it's okay inputs. It doesn't return to center quite as nice. But the rack and pinion, you run 7. Maybe you could run 8. I never tried 8. I had about 7 on one side, about 7 1/4 caster on the other side. That's degrees. And that keeps it from, drifting and the column centering back up pretty quick. And kind of like a shopping cart, So anyways, I've had no problems with the rack and pinion. It went in really, really good. It clocked really good. For a year, I haven't touched it. Put it in. One thing I haven't had to mess with once I put it in. I didn't even, I realigned it, had the toe reset on a electronic machine. And other than that, it's been problem free. Now it's responsive. It comes back to center. I don't know what to say about it. Doesn't leak. Haven't had any problems with it. It's built a little heavier duty than the one that Flaming River's built for a car. It's a little heavier duty than that, so it's more for a truck application. I have no bump steer. Could run a lot of caster. It runs straight. Steering box with that much caster in it had a little trouble staying straight. So, or drifting, little drifting in the steering box. This doesn't drift at all. Holds the lane well. Yeah, I can't complain about the system at all. It is pricey. It's not budget friendly rack and pinion, but if you want to get modern steering in a early model truck in the OBS, it's about the only way I've seen to go. About the only thing on the market that I know of, that you don't have some rack out of a Pinto or a Mustang 2 or some goofy thing like that. It's a rack built for this truck. All right, thanks for watching.